Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome for another episode of Multi-Voice Arena. And today I got a review for this Multi-Voice Arena. I remember my last review, I talked about DC's Creature Commandos. And I also did a video of the Frankenstein and the Creature Commandos multicast, where I talk about which actor would be perfect to play these characters. But ever since I've been doing the DC side of monsters, I think it's time for me to do the Marvel side of the monsters. Well, what can I say about the DC monsters? Now, the question is, what do you know about DC monsters so far? And no, I'm not talking about the Incredible Hulk, and some people would declare that Venom is a Marvel monster, but Venom's close enough. I mean, he is terrifying. I would give him that, but not close enough. I'm talking about the Marvel monsters. Right now, I notice that Marvel had did a movie about the living vampire known as Morbius. And I heard that movie stunk pretty bad. And surprisingly, it's on Hulu, so I can watch that, see what I think, but I bet it's going to be disastrous. Although Matt Smith's performance will be more memorable than than Jared Leto. I tell you, every time when I see Jared Leto performance in The Joker on Suicide Squad, I still keep on watching the clip of American Psycho where Christian Bale killed Jared Leto with an axe. It'll be going like this. Hey, Jared! This is for your performance of the Joker, you method overacting a-hole! That's how I feel every time I see Jared Leto's performance. But besides Morbius, there was also another one I noticed that Disney Plus announced, and I couldn't believe that they're doing this. Disney is now, the MCU is now opening Marvel Monsters, the Legion of Monsters. And the first one I'm going to start off, the one I'm going to talk about right now, is of course Werewolf by Night. Now, what do I know about Werewolf by Night is this. It's based on a comic book back in the 60s, during the time when the comic legislation did forbid any comic book to do any comic books involving monsters. But now, since the 70s, they got rid of the comic legislation, so now they can do whatever they want. And it was all because of Stan Lee doing that one Spider-Man comic where it kind of deals with drugs. Long story, I'll talk about that later. I mentioned that a couple of times. But ever since that Marvel in the 70s now decided to do comic books involving monsters, that's when they kept doing their own Dracula, Frankenstein, the Wolfman, and all that stuff. But let's talk about the characters here. Now, one thing I'm kind of surprised that they have is that the Werewolf by Night, aka Jack Russell, Jack Russell was played by Gael Garcia Bernal. And one thing I know about Jack Russell is this. He became a werewolf from the curse of his dad. A long time ago, his father was cursed by the werewolf curse. So every time when the full moon rises, his father becomes a werewolf, and the curse passed on the generation. So now Jack Russell is cursed by the werewolf. And even though he tries his best not to get carried away with his werewolf curse, he now figures out a way to control his animal urges and act more human. Kind of like when the Hulk. I mean, it's kind of like when Bruce Banner connected himself with the Hulk and became Banner Hulk. Hmm. But anyway, but of course, it doesn't involve Jack Russell itself. It also be pointing to Alyssa Bloodstone. Now, one thing I know about Alyssa Bloodstone, she is the daughter of the immortal monster hunter who goes by the name Ulysses Bloodstone. Now, one thing I know about Ulysses is that Ulysses, he started hunting monsters ever since the caveman era. A long time ago, he was just a normal, average caveman until a meteorite landed on the Earth, and out comes this glowing red stone. And when he grabbed it, he started acting more human than caveman. So the stone gave him immortality, and he'd been spending his eternity hunting down monsters. And one thing about the stone, it can weaken monsters, but it makes them furious, makes them angry at the same time. So he only uses the stone. He only uses the stone when he's hunting monsters, make them act more fierce, but it also weakens them. But now Ulysses is gone, in the story, Alyssa Bloodstone didn't want to become a monster hunter, but he let his relatives possess the stone, and it becomes a huge family feud bloodbath. Every single hunter wants the stone, so they keep killing each other by hunting each other, and that's when Jack Russell came in and discovered that Bloodstone even weakens Russell. But one thing he has to do, he has to keep sniffing her so he'll recognize her when he turns into a werewolf. And also, believe it or not, Jack Russell is also friends to another monster who is in the movie. And I mentioned him on my Swamp Thing review, and it is Man-Thing. Now, one thing I know about Man-Thing is this. His origin was pretty similar to Swamp Thing, except his origin is way different. I mean, it has a bit of a twist to it. His real name is Ted Solis. Yeah, that's right. His real name is Ted. That's why Jack Russell always calls him Ted. He was a scientist, and he had a girlfriend, but his girlfriend was in league with AIM. You know, something that Monarch is the boss of. And he didn't want his formula to go into the wrong hand, so he he ran away, and he injected himself with the serum while he crashes his car into the swamp. And the swamp mixed up his DNA with the serum he made, and therefore he becomes Man-Thing. And also, he has this one ability. Every time when he sees people, if people show fear, his hands will burn them like having a very hot stove in his hands. So every time when people show fear, when he grabs them, they get burned alive. So if you see Man-Thing, don't be afraid. Try to be brave, and he won't burn you. And I know that Lionsgate made a movie of it, but the movie sucked. It was just a typical cliche horror monster movie. I mean, it had the name, but the premise, it was just a typical cliche monster movie. That's it. And only one ridiculous sex scene. But there is also another monster who is also a swamp monster, but it turns out he's the arch nemesis to the Hulk, the Glob. Now, I don't know much about the Glob's origin, but one thing I noticed that his name is Joseph Timms. Joseph Timms, he becomes another swamp monster, not as powerful as Man-Thing, but he was also the Incredible Hulk's arch nemesis. So, pretty much in Werewolf by Night, you have Jack Russell as Werewolf by Night, Alyssa Bloodstone, who is played by the lovely Laura Danella. Danella, I think that's how you pronounce her last name. And of course, Man-Thing. And since they're going to be introducing the Marvel monsters, does that... And now I hear that the MCU is also going to be doing their version of Blade. Oh, speaking of Blade, what do you think of my jacket? I thought I should get off the black jacket. I mean, the black suit jacket, and go for something with leather. Besides, leathers are cool. Anyway, one thing I gotta say, if Blade is in this, does that mean that they're gonna introduce their Marvel version of Dracula? Or they're gonna introduce Dracula's son, Zaris, or his daughter, Lilith Drake. And that also is going to be open some other characters from the comic books too. Like, for instance, in Blade, he also teams up with the vampire hunters known as Rachel Van Helsing and Quincy Harker. And also the other vampire hunter, Frank Drake and Hannibal King. Now, one thing I know about Frank Drake, he is a descendant of Dracula, but he's not a vampire. He is a descendant of Dracula by family's blood, not vampire blood. So he's a human version of Dracula. Well, a descendant to Dracula. And Hannibal King, now I know some of you remember Hannibal King from Blade Trinity, but sadly Ryan Reynolds, he owns the character of Deadpool, so I doubt he'll ever come back as Hannibal King. But who knows? I mean, Josh Brolin, he played Thanos, and he also played Cable, so I don't know if they're going to have Ryan Reynolds to play Deadpool and Hannibal King. I mean, I know that the Blade Trinity sucked, but I liked it, along with the other Wes Craven movies. It's just too bad they're not bringing Wes Craven. I mean, not Wes Craven. Wesley Snipes. I know they're not going to bring Wesley Snipes back, but I know this actor who plays Blade will be. I mean, I'm hoping that he does it pretty good. And one thing I remember that was different than the comics and the movie. In the comics, Blade is British, and Wesley Snipes, I know he couldn't pull off a British accent. So I bet that this actor who's going to be playing Blade, I don't know if he's going to be doing Blade his own way or do a British accent. Who knows? And also, there's another character who goes by the name of Vampire by Night. One thing I know about Vampire by Night is this. Not only that she's a vampire, she's part vampire, part werewolf. So, she's a werevamp. If you remember my Monster Club review, you know what I'm talking about. And Blade is a Dhampir, part human, part vampire. All their strength, none of their weakness. So does that mean with all these monsters together, are they going to form a team called the Howling Commandos, aka Stake? Stake stands for Special Treat Assignment of Known Extranormalities. Normalities. Something like that. Or is it going to be like the Midnight Suns? And yes, I heard about the video game about it. Not close to the comics, but yeah. Keep it as it is. And does that mean they're gonna have the Marvel version of Mr. Hyde in this? Possibility. I mean, if they're gonna have Mr. Hyde in it, they would have bring back the Mr. Hyde from S.H.I.E.L.D. played by Kyle MacLachlan. I mean, he played Mr. Hyde in the series Agent of S.H.I.E.L.D. And of course, I also know about the other supernatural characters that are going to be involved in this whole Legion of Monsters. Moon Knight. I mean, some people say he's like Batman, except he has like this Egyptian curse thing. And of course, one series that is on Hulu and is part of Marvel, Hit Monkey. The monkey who is being taught by a ghost of a hitman who teaches him how to take down the enemy in a professional hitman kind of way. I watched the series, it's not bad. And of course, that means that they might going to have Ghost Rider in it. Now, this time Ghost Rider is going to be played by, I mean, a rumor says that Ghost Rider is going to be played by Norman Reedus from Walking Dead. And yes, I know about the movie with Nicolas Cage. But don't worry, I'm gonna do a review of Ghost Rider, and it will be really awesome! Yeah! But one thing I would say, the first movie's okay, but the second one was terrible. But I'm going to dig in more in the movie when I review Ghost Rider. And of course, they're also, and maybe probably introduce another character who is Ghost Rider's partner, Brother Voodoo. He's like a magical man who uses voodoo and hoodoo as his powers. So he's like a voodoo version of Doctor Strange. And of course, probably the other Lilith, Lilith, the monster of demons. If any of you remember the biblical story, Lilith is Adam's first wife before Eve, and he leaves. I mean, she abandons Adam and she went off on her own and sleep with a lot of animals and becomes like a demon witch succubus thing. That's in the mythos. And I bet they might have Damien Hellstorm and his sister, Santana. Now, I don't know if they're going to be part of the MCU, but they are the son and daughter to Marvel's version of the devil, Mephisto. And for those of you who are wondering why is he called Mephisto, it's short for Mephistopheles. And I don't know, I think I like Lucifer Morningstar better than Mephisto. I mean, DC did a pretty good job, and I've seen the series of Lucifer. It's not a bad show. And of course, I know that Hulu has the TV series of Hellstrom. So if you want to watch about Damien Hellstorm or Hellstrom and his sister Anna Santana Hellstrom, watch the series of Hellstrom on Hulu. And of course, there are other monsters who are going to be in it as well that I'm hoping that will be in it, like Frankenstein's monster, where his legacy picks up after the story of Mary Shelley, where he found the doctor and the doctor died, so he went off on his own, and he's still hated by people, but he tries his best to become good, and until he met the monster hunter Elsa Bloodstone, and now he becomes her assistant. And also Nakantu, the living mummy, and also Amphibian. Yeah, he's like the creature of the Black Lagoon, except they declared him as an alien from another planet. So he's a creature of the Black Lagoon like alien. Hmm. And I thought he was one of the deep ones from H.P. Lovecraft. Shadow over Innsmouth. You know what I'm talking about. And also, the living Colossus. And of course, they also have a kaiju in the group, known as Orgo. He's like a giant golem like character who likes to smash and destroy things. But he becomes a member of the group. And also the one, last but not least, Zombie. No, 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 not Marvel Zombie. Besides, Marvel's What If already did an episode of that. No, I'm talking about Simon Garth Zombie. And for those of you who want to know about his story, Simon Garth was a jerk, but he was a rich tycoon businessman, and he had a full-grown daughter that he cares a lot of, and he had sort of a romance with this woman, but it turns out she was a voodoo priestess. And he fired his gardener for trying to take advantage of his daughter. So the gardener wanted vengeance. So the gardener and the group of other people killed him. And his former love interest, she dig up his body, put an amulet around his neck, and rose him from the grave and made him become a voodoo zombie. Now his gardener tried to control him by going after his daughter, but when he saw his daughter, he remembers her, so he went after his former gardener. So now this zombie is only being controlled by whoever wields the medallion around his neck. But sometimes he has a will of his own throughout the series in the Marvel Comics. Well, this is my review of Marvel Legacy of Monsters of Today. And for those of you who enjoy this review and like hearing me talk about these Marvel monsters, please leave a comment down below, hit like and subscribe for more. And Halloween is coming up soon, and update on my audio. I got all the voices, and I'm still editing it right now. It's going to take a while until I finally be able to upload it on Halloween. So stay tuned. So, this is Michael A. Grimm, aka Multi-Voice Reviewer, telling you all, happy multi-voice-ing.